Innocent until, man, let's get this out of the way since I recorded this video twice already. And one I didn't like and the other one I accidentally deleted. So it was supposed to be out like a week ago. I don't even know if I remember all my thoughts. So I'm just going to share with you guys what comes to mind first and foremost. You know, since this case is pretty much over, and I say that understanding that it's more than probably far from that, but since it is pretty much over, I'm thinking of transitioning this channel. So if you guys see that, you know, there's your heads up if you even see this video, to something else focused on true crime. If you know me, you may be able to tell where that's going. But anyway, as it pertains to the Idaho 4 and Bryan Kohberger, man, yeah, just saying that right there hurt my heart, because I always didn't want to get lost in the drama and forget that there were 4 lives and surviving loved ones taken from this life, and those that are still here affected by that fact, that reality. And that is a very grievous thing to think about. So I can only imagine what it is to deal with. So my prayers go out to their surviving loved ones, man. And I wish with everything in me, God definitely does not make mistakes. And he has a plan and a purpose for everything. His own son was murdered in a horrific way. And he not only allowed that to happen, he set that up to happen. So, you know, maybe that doesn't comfort many, but it definitely comforts me to know that God is still in control despite all the madness, man. But yeah, if I could, in my selfish ways, my thoughts not being his and my ways not necessarily being his either, as the scriptures say, I would bring them back along with many others, because the reality is that these 4 victims, and I don't say this to be insensitive, I say it because too many situations, in my estimation, miss reality. These 4 lost lives are no more important than any other lives that have been lost in horrific or natural ways. So, it still hurts regardless, you know what I mean? So, just to think about it. Rest in peace to them, and prayers and condolences to their loved ones. Also, I say loved ones because saying family and friends doesn't always encompass that. Like, they're just, you know, just everybody who is affected and involved. My thoughts about this case. Let me first and foremost say Bryan pleaded guilty, and that cannot be overlooked. I've said from the beginning, and I still feel that way, disconnected from the case for probably almost a year or more now. Missing information that you guys probably do have. I was waiting for trial, guys. I was waiting for the information to be poured out in a more organized setting, but we won't get that now. But my initial summation was that the roommates were the most obvious suspects and the best suspects, the 2 surviving roommates. And now, not having any more information than I had the last time I checked in on the case, I still feel the same way, man. You know what I mean? I still feel like, how were they not involved? But again, I don't want to cast anything on them that doesn't belong to them. That is a speculation. That is a hypothesis. That is not anything I'm pulling from known fact, besides observing what we were presented with and then making a conclusion, drawing a conclusion from that. So, but Bryan pled guilty, man, and I just can't sidestep that either, because something else I've always said, I'm not in either camp. I'm not in the extremely not guilty camp, and I'm not in the extremely guilty camp. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm just a human being. I know how men get ostracized and treated like beasts, labeled as beasts simply for being men. And I know all people have to do is accuse men of things, and that makes them guilty, especially if it's a woman accusing or a child accusing. I mean, we're automatically guilty. And being a man, you know, that should piss me off. And then furthermore, being a human, I just know nobody should be treated like that. Nobody's less than human because of their social caste. And I'm just sick of men being treated like that. I say if I was alive when women were treated like that, I would have had the same problem, you know what I mean? So I didn't think Bryan was absolutely guilty or absolutely innocent, but based on the evidence that we had, it wasn't enough for me to say that the man was guilty. Therefore, if I was on the jury, based on the last time I checked into the case, I would have to vote not guilty. I would have to, because you can't just be disrupting people's lives because something happened and we want a villain to pin it to. That's not how justice works, no matter how often that be the case of how justice plays out in our world. So I know I'm saying a lot, but that's where I was at. I would have had to vote it not guilty, not knowing whether he was or not based on the facts, but definitely, well, the evidence presented, but definitely leaning that way based on what was there and what wasn't. We never, to my knowledge, got these bombshells of evidence that we were always promised the state would have. Maybe I want to keep reiterating, I've been gone for like a year. I was not with the hoopla, the back and forth, the arguing and stuff on Facebook. Hey man, I want to say shout out to whoever do that, but I can't shout you out because I think that shit is juvenile and childish. There's a way to share your opinion without being disrespectful. A broad just disrespected me on Facebook for asking the question. I cursed that bitch out. I don't play like that. That's what I'm saying. You don't get, because you live in a female body, you don't get to just say and do shit and then it be harmless. Bitch, I'm finna cuss your ass out. I deleted it because whatever. You know what I mean? I'm a Christian and I wanted to please my God more than I wanted to get that off my chest. But there's a way to express your opinion. But I wasn't caught up in the hoopla and didn't want to get caught up in it. But maybe those bombshells came out. I don't think so, because even being outside the case, I was still getting notifications all the time about what's going on. Hell, I got one on my phone right now. New pictures of Bryan Kohberger since he's been sentenced. I ain't asked for that shit. I ain't following the case. But, you know, the algorithm has long reaches, I guess, so it's reached back in the past. All right, let me stop rambling again. He pled guilty, man. That cannot be understated, but it does beg the question why, which is something I asked on Twitter, man. I'm going to tell y'all what I think about Bryan, man, what I observed. You know what I mean? My little eyes, I do spy. I think Bryan, in certain ways, lacks a full mental capacity to calibrate things. I'm going to keep it real with you, man. You got geniuses out here. I've heard of them. Hell, I may be one. Our minds operate on a level that some minds may never reach. We're so far ahead in our ability to assess situations and assess proper outcomes and inevitable outcomes that it sounds crazy to other people until what we said comes true, right? And then so a lot of times, people like me, we learn to be silent, and we're that intelligent in certain areas, but in other areas, man, we're dumb as a literal box of rocks. And not even just dumb, because it's just that we ain't got it, big dog. I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. Elevator don't go all the way up. And I'm bringing this up with Bryan because I do think that may have been the case with him. I just watch how he carry himself, and sometimes he seems like he's not even in tune with what the hell is going on. But I do know that the man had areas where people would consider him, you know, very valiant. Let me say that, you know what I mean, if not an expert. So I'm saying that to say that, could that have played a part in why this gentleman pled guilty? I'm asking questions. I'm not making no decisive statements. Could that be a reason he pled guilty? Did they talk this man with fear of the death penalty and losing his life and saying, man, you might as well just go and cop out to this? I don't know. I'm very curious about why Bryan pled guilty if he's not, because obviously that's the most reachable reason, because his ass did it. But if he didn't, why would he plead guilty? And one thing that comes to my mind, not knowing whether he was guilty and not having the evidence to conclude that, is that he, in certain areas, his mental capacity just didn't fully bloom, and so they were able to talk him into this being a better option. Now, another thing that makes me lean in that direction is this isn't something that's uncommon in America's Just Us system. I mean, the fact that they get people to plead out to crimes that they're not guilty of is a very common knowledge thing. If you don't know that, then your ass just ain't tuned in. That's not nothing negative on your part. We can't pay attention to everything. But if you do the research, you'll find out this is a common plague in the American justice system. The prosecutors, the judges, everybody involved would know we ain't really got shit on these folk. But, you know, just for whatever reason we want to get this case sped through, we can manipulate them into pleading guilty. A lot of people get caught up in that cycle when it's not just at all. So that's something else that made me think this may be a possibility. But that's the first question I'm hanging in the air. If Bryan is innocent, why would he plead guilty? The second question is going to be this. Why would Ann allow it? Now, everything I said about Bryan, you know, his elevator maybe not going all the way up, I never got anything of the sense toward Ann. I got the exact opposite impression of her. This is a very sharp lady, impressively sharp. I often say in my life, I'm never attracted to women who got ass and titties out, man. That ain't my thing, bro. I'm never attracted to women who are just physically appealing. That's not my thing. I want to see how your mind works. I want to know how you navigate life logically and with reason. That's what attracts me. I like women who use their minds in concert with their emotions, not women who are all emotion and physically aesthetic. I don't give no damn about that. It's beautiful people every damn well. Beautiful women specifically, because I don't date men. But Ann came off as one of those women to me. And if you remember my videos when I used to talk about it, I called her my play wife, because Ann isn't the most beautiful woman ever, and she isn't ugly, but I know Ann is married, but I'm just trying to unpack this for you guys. But she just always came off as sharp and precise. She wasn't emotional. She was a chef with it, you know what I mean? She make her point, they land and they cut deep, you know what I mean, and fine and nice. So why would Ann allow this to happen if she went hard? She never gave any indication that she thought her client was guilty, but all of a sudden she's on board with him pleading guilty. Why would that be the case? One answer that I came up with for that is what I know about criminal litigation is this right here. The lawyer can only go as far as the evidence and the client allows her to, right? Or him to. So if Bryan wanted to plead guilty, that was out of her hands. I remember during the YSL trial, Young Thug's attorney standing up during his guilty plea and saying, this is his decision. Because if it was up to me, I don't think they got a damn thing, which later on, the other two defendants who took it all away got found not guilty. But I think his name was Bryan something, I can't remember now. He said, if it was up to me, we'll ride the horse all the way to the location. But Young Thug wants to plead guilty, and it's his decision, not mine. So that's the second question. Why would Ann be on board with this, air quotes, allow it? And the only thing that I could think of is, besides, once again, the fact that she knows he's guilty, which will raise huge red flags to me, because even whether it's your job or not, why the hell are you defending the innocence of someone you know is guilty? And since I'm going to rule that out, because I don't get any indication that Ann is that type of person, I'm going to think that it was out of her hand. This is the decision that Bryan wanted to make. But I got to be honest with you, too. That's just hard for me. Like, Ann is sharp. I'm not sure Bryan is sharp in litigation. Maybe I'm just wrong there. But I can see Ann going to Bryan and he want to plead guilty and being like, nah, we ain't doing this, Bryan, and this is why. They don't have the evidence. We can defend this case. But then again, the death penalty is on the table. You got 4 lives in a world where people are just naturally misandric. And so Bryan might have just been weighing it like, man, these folk gonna fry my ass anyway, man. I want to walk away with my life, even if it's just the rest of my life in prison. You know, maybe that was the case. I don't know. Those two things puzzle me. Why would Bryan plead guilty? I've already given you my best speculations. And why would Ann, air quotes, allow it and be on board with it? Third, finally, the biggest to me, 4 people were murdered here. Everybody screaming about justice. For Bryan, if he's innocent, for the 4 lives lost, for the surviving loved ones, and for and against the real perpetrators of these crimes if it's not Bryan. Everybody is on. If we can't agree about anything else, that's where the agreement lines up. Justice needs to happen in this case and all cases, right? And the prosecution was with us. I'm talking about, there was nobody who wasn't singing that song. Not only that, they were the ones charged with bringing this justice to us. And they swore that they had what they needed to do it, an overwhelming burden of evidence to prove that Bryan himself was guilty of the crime. They had him nailed to the cross, dead to right, and they hadn't even dropped all the evidence yet, according to their cheerleaders. That was bombshells and nuclear bombshells and warheads coming. If this man is guilty, we ain't got to think about it. Why would you concede to allowing him to walk away with such a minimal penalty in light of what was on the table and in light of what was done? That's the question I have no damn answer for, but because I'm me and I like to try to be objective, I would speculate. Maybe they didn't have the resources. Maybe it was a political move. Maybe in Idaho they said, hey man, we ain't got the money. This is our chance to get this over with. This trial that could last a couple more years and drain the local resources. Maybe we need to go ahead and take this out right here if we can get them on board with it. That's probably one of the only logical things I can come up with why the prosecution, who swore they had this man dead to right, already sitting in the death chamber, why they would say, nah, we're going to let up and just let him live the rest of his life in prison. Knowing that there were family members who were not on board with that, even though some were. But obviously there's another reason. Many other possible reasons, but one of them that immediately comes to my mind is y'all as not only know who did this, some of your damn folks are involved, if not immediately and alone responsible. And that's why y'all were willing to set this on this man's desk to see if he would take it. Being gone a year, guys, being very grieved by the case and the way humans treat each other in the positions we put each other in. Seeing what has now been at least part of the final resolution to this drama. It's horrible drama. I got to be honest with you. I feel the same way I felt from the beginning. There was so much more going on in Idaho, and they rushed to cover it up so we would never find out about it. So the lingering and final question for me is this: why did Bryan go along with it? Why did he make himself the lone scapegoat if what I believe is true? Maybe I'm just wrong. Y'all be good.